Good morning and welcome to another short reflection on Holy Week coming from the manse. Let's begin with a short prayer. Lord, in the midst of this pandemic and all that causes us concern and worry, and also in the midst of this Easter season, be with us all. Bring to us a word of hope and encouragement, but also a word of challenge as well. Amen. It's Wednesday, and the reading for today is again found in Mark's Gospel, and it's at chapter 14. While Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at the table, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment of nard, and she broke open the jar and poured the ointment on his head. But some who were there said in anger, "Why was the ointment wasted in this way? For this ointment could have been sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor." And they scolded her. But Jesus said, "Leave her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, and you can show kindness to them whenever you wish. But you will not always have me. She has done what she could. She has anointed my body beforehand for its burial. Truly I tell you, wherever the good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." Let me read that last verse again. Truly I tell you, wherever the good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her. So the setting is in a house in Bethany. I've said before about the number of pilgrims visiting Jerusalem at the time of the Passover, possibly 200,000 from all over the Roman Empire. There wasn't wasn't enough accommodation in the city for them all, so they stayed out in the surrounding areas, and Bethany was the place where Jesus was. And he was in this house with his disciples, and they were eating a meal together. So the scene would have been, the men would have been reclining on the couch, leaning on their left arm, using their right arm to eat the bread and to dip it into the various bowls. And of course, the women would have been serving them. And here we have a situation where this unnamed woman brings an alabaster flask of a very rich and common perfume to pour over Jesus. Now, the custom was, if you had an honoured guest, sometimes you would pour one or two little drops on his head just as a sign of honour. But she breaks the flask and pours the whole lot over Jesus. Again, the custom for burial at the time of Jesus was the body was washed and then anointed with oil, and the flask was broken with the fragments of the flask buried with the body. So the symbolism here is really quite stark. It combines showing honour to a guest, but goes further than that by using up all the ointment, acknowledging that this was something that prefigured his death. This is an important story, a powerful story, a very poignant story for us in the midst of Easter. So let's set the scene with that and think of the disciples. It's obvious from the other stories that Mark tells, the disciples weren't quite on the right wavelength. Now, remember, there were a bunch of guys from Nazareth in Galilee. Some of them were fishermen. So they were men's men. They would have had the banter and the crack. They were quite tough down-to-earth folk, but it was obvious they weren't quite getting what Jesus was teaching. And the bottom line was they seemed to refuse to accept that he was going to die. Perhaps they thought, well, listen, we'll protect him. Or perhaps they thought, oh, it'll all work out in the end. And they were doing what men normally do, having a banter, being relaxed, and not quite getting what was going on behind the scenes, what was going on beneath the surface reality. But the woman does. With her female instincts and intuitions, she notices that the master's not quite himself. Yes, he may smile at some of the crack that the disciples are coming away with, but she senses he's heavy. It's hard for him. Jesus is the lonely man of faith, making these decisions, surrounded by his closest companions, but the men are not helping. In fact, he's had occasion to rebuke Peter. He's had a word with James and John because they were caught up in themselves. There's the problem of Judas. And then there's times when he addressed all 12, indicating that they weren't quite getting this. And of course, shortly, later this week, he's in the Garden of Gethsemane in anguish, and in prayer he comes back and he finds them asleep. Jesus was the lonely man of faith. And it was this woman, this unnamed woman, who got that. She saw that. She sensed that. So while they were all eating and joking and laughing and bantering and having these exchanges, she comes up, she breaks the alabaster flask, and she anoints Jesus as a symbol of what was going to happen. She knew he was going to his death. And in a sense, what Mark is saying to us, the disciples didn't get it. And this woman, she's the first Christian. She got it. Jesus was going to his death. She's the first true disciple. But she's unnamed. And as I read this story for today, I was thinking, what a shame we don't have her name. And then I thought, oh, hang on a minute. She represents all the women. The women at the time of Jesus were in the background. It was a patriarchal society, but we read the Gospels and you realise that Jesus had tremendous respect for women. He treated them, sometimes not in accordance with all the rules of the society. He built them up. He paid them respect. And there they were, always in the background, but my goodness, without them, the Jesus movement would never have got off the ground. And the same today. By and large, throughout the history of the church, and even today in the modern world, men do an awful lot in the foreground. But the women are the cement behind things that holds everything together. Without them, the church would just fall apart. So Jesus pays tribute to this lady. In powerful terms, he said, everywhere where the gospel is preached, this woman will be remembered for what she did. Wow. He didn't say that about any of the men. So this is a powerful, powerful story. And as Jesus paid tribute to this lady, I want to pay tribute to all the ladies in the background of the church and the faith who do so much. This is your day. This is your moment. On behalf of the men, can I thank you all for all that you do. Without you, the Jesus movement would never have got off the ground. And without you today, we wouldn't be flourishing and continuing. So thank you. May God bless you this Easter time. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow.